welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern podcast and vidcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, the Emerald enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, ring slingers? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy, the podcasting machine, the big nerd in green. It's the Emerald enthusiast. And some people like long summer's nights, but we prefer Emerald nights. And that's why we're going to review Emerald Nights, the animated short, the animated movie, right here today on the Emerald Echo vidcast and podcast with a special guest.
I am the one with the coffee. You have all the energy. How's that work?
Because I recharged. I recharged right
Okay,
before I started.
that explains it. I didn't recharge.
Thank you for setting that up so I can knock it out of the park.
As you mentioned, we have a guest. If you're watching, you can see the other person on the other side of the screen. So, Donnie, take it away and give him one of your patented introductions. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and beings of the Omniverse, please welcome from the Straight Outta Gotham Podcast, fellow obsessive podcasting nerd, this is Peter Verra.
Wow. That is, I feel like I'm going to hit somebody in the head with a steel chair now.
I think that's his goal with that, yeah.
I've never been more pumped up in my life. Like I'm just like I feel like I need to do. I'm gonna be sitting here talking nerd for about an hour when I feel like I should be like chopping down a tree. I'm ready to go. Like I haven't been this round up in so long. So
yeah,
I'm pumped to be here. I can't wait. I love talking lanterns. There's not many people out there that are worthy to talk lantern with, but being here with the Big Green is a real honor, and it's great to finally get a chance to hop on a podcast with Adam. I've known Adam for a long time now, and this is real cool. I'm digging it.
Awesome. It's good to have you. Of course, you also are on a frequent co-host of the BOF vlogs.
Yes, I am the new Dick Shoes.
Sometimes vlogs, sometimes audio only, depending on.
Well, it's like, pre-show. I asked, I was like, "Is this audio only?" And he's like, "Well, we do." I was like, "God damn it, video!" It's like totally not presentable. Got to get the beard in order. Got to,
it's okay. Mine is all over the place too.
I wore a black T-shirt. I'm like,
it's wintertime. It's wintertime, and it's cold, and I'm keeping it warm.
Yeah.
Any way I can. So
well, I mean, I got Norton here with me, so he's gonna keep me warm.
See, unfortunately, I don't fit my Green Lantern shirt anymore. That tells you how much I've been eating. But I have a Batman shirt, so
that fits. You got some yellow ovals on your sleeve.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, on the side of the shirt.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, see, Peter, people don't realize when you have a beard and you're getting ready to go on a camera, and have it recorded for posterity, you're like,
It's another thing to worry about.
That's right. Got to make sure you got no chicken bits or anything like that caught in it. So
barbecue sauce.
if I had a ring, I could just shave with like my ring. It'd probably be a lot easier.
Or you could shave like Superman, in the mirror with the heat vision. That would be cool.
I'd save money, right? Like I wouldn't buy all those razor blades.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Not like I haven't bought razor blades in a while, as you could tell.
I have them. I haven't used them in a couple of days, but whatever. But obviously you're big on Batman, so everybody knows that follows you on your various Twitter accounts. We know you're a huge Spider-Man fan as well because you do the Italians for Spidey podcast with Nico and his
sausage
dad.
And meatball, yeah.
and Nico will be joining us on one of the episodes coming up to talk about the Spider-Man stuff, the Spider-Man Beyond era, at least the first 3 issues.
He's pumped. He is so pumped about that, man. You guys are gonna have a blast.
Yeah. So it'll be good. But because we don't know much about your Green Lantern fandom, tell us about your relationship with Green Lantern, how you got into him, who's your favorite, stuff like that.
Yeah. Totally. To be honest, my first real encounter with Green Lantern is all because of Superman the Animated Series. I was pretty young at the time. I wasn't buying my own comic books. Obviously, I was too young. So whatever came at the drugstore was what I got, and usually it was Batman or Superman. Right. But just being exposed to Kyle Rayner for the first time, and as a kid who liked art, Kyle just kind of resonated with me. And then you kind of learn that interpretation of Kyle Rayner isn't so true. He kind of looks more like Hal Jordan than anything else.
That was like an amalgamation.
Yeah, and it was cool. But again, it did its purpose. It got me introduced to Kyle, who was the Lantern of the Times, and eventually one thing leads to another, and you just dive into this lore and history. And people are talking about Star Wars. I'm like, I don't need Star Wars. I got Green Lanterns, boy. I'm just I got cooler space stuff going on, and you just diving into that world, and just so many Green Lanterns my favorite. Like, do I have a favorite? It's probably Kyle. But like the list, like
That's the right
behind them.
answer, by the way. That's
Oh,
the
it's
right
always the
answer
right
for this
answer.
podcast.
Like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, like, there's totally an old school group that loves
Yeah.
Hal Jordan, right? And
As do I.
yeah, I mean, how could you not? But like, it's tough. Like Lanterns, like 2 through whatever, because it's like a mixture of like Jessica Cruz, Salak, like
Right.
Bidge, Chip. You know, just like there's crazy Kilowatt, obviously. Like there's a crazy amount of Green Lanterns and just so many
Right.
interesting ones. Guys like Steel. Like it's just
Mhm.
the alien. It's the best thing about them is it's just aliens, and it's limitless possibilities. And
Right.
Yeah, it definitely is. And
Well, that's perfectly said for what we're reviewing today, because a lot of the narrative in this movie is actually carried by secondary characters.
yeah,
yeah,
Hal Jordan's in it, so is Sinestro and Abensor, but you got a lot of characters whom were really, probably a lot of people, this was their first exposure to them.
yeah, I
So,
mean, this movie came out pretty early in the animated originals, right? Like it was one
mhm.
of the first ones, I feel like.
2011.
Yeah.
so
So like right off the heels of like was it Superman Doomsday came out and like they were just hitting everyone. Wonder Woman had a movie I think coming up or either around this time, so
yeah,
they were hitting all the major characters.
Hmm.
so I can't remember, guys. Did this one come first, or did First Flight come first?
I believe this one did, didn't it?
I can't remember if First Flight came first.
Donnie, I
I
don't know.
know that,
You're the stats man. You
well,
tell
but a
us.
lot of people thought that they were like connected, and they're not, because
No,
you
they're
can
totally
see,
Yeah,
different.
yeah,
no, they're
they're
absolutely
not.
not. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, even
Um,
just animation wise, like the style, they look totally different.
yeah, yeah. It's no, but like you guys were saying, I think it's a good um, sort of primer, which coming out before the movie was a good idea.
Mhm.
Um, I wish the movie had like the live action movie had more of the space stuff and less of the
Yeah,
human stuff. Although, if you're Ryan Reynolds, I'd want
less
to stay on
squid.
Earth with Blake Lively too. So,
yeah, actually, First Flight predated it by 2 years. It was
Okay,
2009.
oh
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, see, and that's what I was thinking as I was rewatching last night. It would have made more sense for this one. Like if you're trying to prime people for the movie, I think this one makes more sense to come first because it really is an explainer of just about everything.
Hmm.
You really get
Like,
deep into the lore of the lanterns in this movie. Like it
Yes.
explains a lot.
yeah, and I was because I haven't seen this one in oh god, I can't remember the last time we watched it, and I'm like, wow, this is really deep in terms of the lore, like you were saying, the lore and stuff like that. Uh,
Um, I don't always watch the whole movie. I usually watch like the Avra part and then
yeah,
my favorite part, which is Balfunga, the Unrelenting.
Yes.
Like I
yeah,
absolutely, and I mean, I'm sure you guys being wrestling fans love Roddy Piper as Balfunga.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Exactly. You can
it's
definitely hear those Piper dulcet tones
yeah,
You know
when
what's
when
funny?
he's angry.
I remember the first time I went way back when. I can tell you honestly, the first time I watched it, I had no idea that it was him.
I
Oh,
didn't
And
really?
need.
then
No, I'm with you. I had to look at the credits. I was like, that's Roddy Piper.
and then true story. I realized it was him yesterday.
That's
I'm
funny.
like, wait a minute, that voice
Did you
sounds
look at the
familiar.
credits or did you just happen to just hear it?
No, no, I looked it up. I'm like,
Okay.
oh my god, it's Roddy Piper, and it's yeah, it's
And like that short made me go out and buy Green Lantern. I think it's 188, which is the issue he debuted in and everything. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and you find out like that's actually really deep cut because the name of the story is Mogo doesn't
Doesn't
socialize.
socialize.
And at
Right.
some point when, or what's her name? I'm drawing a blank, Donnie. What's her name?
Arisha.
Arisha.
When Arisa's like, they're, it's like a first day on the job. So they're like, you haven't told them about Mogo? And they all get together and they have a laugh.
Yeah.
Like, well, Mogo doesn't
Yeah.
socialize. And then like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad this happened as an older fan. Cause I'm like, oh, wow, you guys did that. Like, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
In that issue, Tomar-Re jokes after he tells her about Mogo. He's like, "Yeah, and one day I'll tell you about the really big lanterns." And she's like, "You're kidding, right?" Well, Hal Jordan says that line in the movie. So,
yeah, yeah.
Mm. Oh, it's
So
just,
before we do more of a deep dive into the movie as a whole, as speaking of, you brought up comics, Donnie. So were the first comics you read Kyle Rayner centric, or were they? What were they?
oh no, as far as Green Lantern, I don't remember my exact first Green Lantern issue. I want to say it was Tales of the Green Lantern Corps,
Hmm.
because it was, I got into the Super Friends in the 70s, and it was sometime in like the early 80s that I first encountered like my first Green Lantern comics. But the first Green Lantern I read was Hal Jordan because he was in the Justice League.
Hmm. Okay.
So.
And you, Pete, what was the first
It's
one?
for me, it was Rainer was just popular at the time. Like I grew up with Rainer and Wally West as my Lantern and Flash. So it
Yeah,
was
mine was funny because my first exposure to Green Lantern, if I remember correctly, was the Justice League animated series.
okay. So you
By
grew
the
up with
way,
John.
it is um, the the blueprint for the Justice League. By the way, I just want to point that out. But anyway, um, so that was my first exposure, and then a buddy of mine was like, this was years later. He's like, you should, a couple years later, he's like, you should really read Green Lantern. I'm like, you mean the guy from the animated series? And he's like, yeah, but it's more complicated than that. He's like, I said, well, give me a brief explainer to see if I'll be into this.
Mhm.
And he's like, basically, it's Superman meets Star Wars. I'm like, all right, sold. And then
Yeah.
I went to the comic store, and the first one I got was a trade. I think it was a volume 1 of Kyle.
Mhm.
And then I think a year after that came out Rebirth, and that's when I started with the
Rebirth was
monthly.
something else,
And
man.
so, uh,
Rebirth.
you know,
Yeah, like I remember I've read Green Lantern like so out of order because like I started with Kyle, and then
Mhm.
you could just retroactively go back and like I remember picking up trades of the Green Lantern Chronicles. Those like
Yeah.
paperback, and it's just so funny like seeing how like just and the book sometimes can seem racist, but then like you
Oh
see
yeah.
like Hal and Carol's dynamic is so interesting. Like she's like trying to convince him to like date her as Green Lantern, and you're just like, whoa, the '60s were so interesting.
Yeah.
Like things
Oh
were
yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
But and then you just you hear Neil Adams talk about like why he created John Stewart and the type of person he wanted to represent with that character, and you're like, holy shnikes. You're just like it
Hey,
gets so
you get
much.
points for the Chris Farley reference. Awesome.
And you read the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams books, and then you see the man confront Green Lantern. He's like, well, I hear you hate orange people and blue people and all this stuff. It's like, Green Lantern's been woke before woke was a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not even a joke. So it's crazy how it like evolved socially as well.
Yeah. It's just like there's so much to my friend when he said there's more to it than that. He wasn't kidding, and I
Yeah.
found that out as I kept reading. But so again, before we do a deep dive into the animated movie, we know that there is a HBO Max series coming. The fact that and some other details are all we know so far is an issue with certain people. But I know Donnie's excited. I know I'm excited. Peter, where are you at with your hype level for that?
I'm excited, but I don't get really like I'm not gonna be like I'm not gonna be like overly excited until I see something. Like
Right.
I have we even seen like a title card? Do we even know what the show logo looks like? Like
I think it
I
was.
know it's in development and they say they're working on it and that's great. And when it's ready, they'll show it to me. But like
Yeah.
you know, I am dying for some Green Lantern content.
Yeah.
I honestly even feel like the books have been kind of a letdown recently. That's just me. It's not a title I've been reading, so maybe Donnie can fill me in. But like, I feel like there is kind of a lull when it comes to Green Lantern stuff right now. And I hope it comes out and it's good and I enjoy it. And but there's just so much for me to play with right now. I can't complain about with what I don't have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're big fans of the Jeff Thorne run so far,
Yeah.
but
The book so
it's
far
a
is
different kind
actually
of
pretty
book.
good.
First of all, it's John Stewart centric,
Uh-huh.
and it's a mystery. It's kind of this slow burn mystery that recently has like really picked up.
Because I didn't like Morrison's book. I was on it for John. I gave it 5 issues.
Mhm.
And then after I knew John Schnepp was going to make a cameo appearance because I know I believe he was friends with Liam Sharp, who I think drew the book. So Sharp drew him in like a background. But after that, I dropped the book because I just like Morrison confuses the hell out of me. So it's just
Yeah.
a service to begin with.
Well,
That's
this
fair.
isn't related to that at all. It doesn't
Okay,
play
Yeah.
into
It's
that at
totally
all.
separate.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
all right. I
yeah,
may go back and check it out and try to find it.
It's a good run so far. It's
yeah.
what are we in? Seven
By the
issues
way,
in, Donnie?
it'll be 8. It's coming out next week. It was supposed to be this week, but it got delayed. So,
Yeah.
by the way, if you're looking for Mogo Doesn't Socialize, you can find it right here.
That's
There
great.
it
What book
is.
is that on?
That's Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, the annual #2.
Is that a hard book to find? Like, is that easy?
It's
Is it
not that hard to find. It's a little
reasonably
pricey, but
priced? No,
yeah, this one I think I got it for like $8 because it's
that's
in like
fine.
it's good shape. It's not perfect. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I will track that down. My shop's really good. They usually have a good selection of back issues and price books. So, you know, as long as
Yeah,
like
my guy is pretty good too with in terms of back issues and stuff. So actually, he made the mistake of giving me his cell phone number, so I called him often. I forgot to add this to my list, and he's like, "What?" I could just imagine he's probably like, "Damn it, why'd I give this guy my number?"
just
But
text him.
that's what I do
but
sometimes. I'm like, on this podcast, I'll text him. By the way, Donnie, I mentioned something. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot.
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, Peter, your experience. I mean, I grew up in a time where outside of like convenience stores, that was my main access to comics. We had the town
Yeah.
that I grew up in had one shop for a couple of years, and that was it. And
Where are you
so,
from?
I'm from a small place in Virginia.
Okay.
Okay, so I finally go to college and I have not only my own money because I have a job, but I have access to comic stores. So not only do I get big into the Kyle run and he becomes my favorite DC character, but I go back and get all these trades because that's the first time I'd really seen trades.
Yeah.
So
Like it's like everyone's like it's funny because everyone's like comic books are for kids and like kids ain't buying these things. They
mhm.
can't afford them and they can't get to them. So it's like kids ain't
Yeah, it
buying.
was. Yeah,
But it was rough for a while. Like literally, like it was just you go to like you said, a convenience store. It's just Superman, Batman, Spider Man. Like they don't even have like Wonder Woman or anything. Like God forbid you find like an X-Man book. But like
and
yeah,
you
so
had that one rack, and that was it.
that was
You
it.
know.
It was one spinner rack, and it was always, you know, it got updated maybe like once or twice every 2 months.
Hmm.
Like you weren't going there. And now I found a shop locally near me, and which is great. And I've been going there since 2004. So I've have a great relationship and everything, and it's great to have access to just these stories. Like it bums me out. I see a collection someone walk in and sell their collection because it's kind of like heartbreaking. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm buying half these books.
So you're like, yeah, keep selling them, keep selling
Yeah,
them.
I'm like, it sucks for you, dude.
It's funny. I used to be trade only, like in the beginning, and I thought, okay, I can live with just the trades. And then I got my first like monthly, and I just kept adding, and I'm like, "Oh, this
Yeah,
is like
there's something about monthly books that
stupid me who said, yeah, I can stick to two. That didn't last long. Didn't
trades
last long at all.
collected editions, like anniversary stuff.
Yeah, it's
I love
crazy.
like Absolute. Like
Oh yeah.
I have the Sinestro Corps Absolute edition, and
Mm.
it's absolutely amazing. Like
Oh,
see that artwork on that big page. It's
what a
just wow.
story!
Yeah,
What
one
a
of my favorite.
story!
One of my
Yeah,
favorites.
it's fantastic. But we'll have to do. Maybe we'll talk Sinestro Core another day. We'll have you back to do a
I'd
review
love
of
to. Yeah,
Sinestro.
sure. Give me a reason to read that book.
All right, yeah. we'll get back to that. But let's dig into this movie. So, Donnie, give us a little bit of yeah, a quick summary of what the heck is going on for the five people that, or well, maybe more because these animated movies are niche. So, for the people that haven't seen it, give us a brief kind of idea.
Okay, well, this is an anthology movie. There's kind of a main story that wraps around four other individual stories, focusing on, again, other lanterns, minor characters outside of Kilowatt. Let me go through just a few of the people here. I won't do an exhaustive list, but Nathan Fillion as Hal Jordan, Jason Isaacs as Sinestro, Elizabeth Moss as Aresia, Henry Rollins as Kilowatt, Arnold Velaslu as Abin Sur, Tony Amendola as Appa Ali Apsa, Kelly Hugh as Lyra, Michael Jackson as Ganthet, not the hee Michael Jackson, but the actor Michael Jackson, Bruce Thomas as Atrocitus, Wade Williams as Deegan, and Rowdy Piper as Bullfunga.
Yeah, yeah, no, I actually really liked the you had a main story to kick us off, and then you got little stories featuring these, you know, lesser known
Mhm.
lanterns. I really enjoyed that format, and I think this was kind of doing a similar type of thing that Batman Gotham Knights had done. I think a year or a couple years earlier.
Right, yeah.
But I know this is going to sound like sacrilege for people that know me being the big Batman and Superman guy, but I prefer this movie to Batman Gotham Knights. Like for whatever
Yeah,
it
no, I
was,
agree with you.
I just couldn't get into the to the Batman one. I don't know if it was the completely like different. animation styles for each story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's what threw me off, but for whatever it was, I didn't dig it. And then I remember when I had heard that this was going to be in that same vein. I'm like, oh, not another one of those. I didn't like that Batman. But then I was like, okay, I was pleasantly surprised by this. But I really like that they took the time to give us that background on the lesser known some of the lesser known lanterns, and
Yeah.
really, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, expand on the mythology. Like you get the
Mm-hmm.
story of the first lantern, which even back then, I'm like, is this comic accurate? I have no idea, but
Yeah, that's a great question. I wanted to ask Donnie that. Like, is that
yeah,
story kind of comic accurate? The
Which
first
one?
Lantern, the one about what's his the first Green
Avra? No,
Lantern,
Avra was created for this.
That's
okay,
interesting because I
Yeah,
think it's a pretty cool story. I like
yeah,
how the first Green Lantern, first construct, just came from the quote unquote scribe. Like he wasn't the warrior. It really kind of like embraces everything about what the ring is and how the ring selects you and stuff. Like I really dug that. I was like,
yeah.
I now I want it as a comic, so it is
Right. In
comic
fact,
accurate.
I think the only other of the four lanterns that were, I think only Gahoo is actually like, one that wasn't created for this. Avra, Watchet, and Blue were all created for this.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That's interesting.
well, it's amazing that they, like I said, they did such a good job with the story that now that you tell me that, after the fact, I'm like, usually I'd be like, well, you have so many lanterns in the mythology. Why did you pick some of those? I was happy with the ones like they gave me
Yeah.
a new character, and I'm like, all right, I can roll, I can
Yeah.
roll with it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I really like the attention to detail about the wider mythology, because it could have been so easy for them to do another house story, because you know Hal was
Supposedly is the big. I mean, he is the greatest Green Lantern of all time. Correct, Donnie?
right.
Like, there's just no doubt about that.
He's the most notable. Yeah, there's no
He's
doubt.
definitely the most
Yeah,
notable. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm with you. I'm like just the fact that we could travel so many galaxies and do so many like how many aliens are in this movie
oh,
alone? Like it's
it's
great,
ridiculous.
and it's like Warner Brothers potentially could have like this Star Wars. Like I know everyone's all hyped off Dune, but and they compare that to Star Wars, but I feel like Green Lantern. You could do so many things. Like it's so fantastical. Like a live action movie like this would be awesome, in my opinion.
Oh,
Oh my,
absolutely.
yeah, I would love it.
And
Yeah.
you saw them like they took in like Suicide Squad, Assault on Arkham kind of like led the way. Every once in a while they like do these test runs in these animated movies, and then they see like, all right, well maybe this has got a shot at live action, and you're just kind of like, oh, like I'm dying for like that Green Lantern Antoine Fuqua Training Day movie, you know,
Yeah, that could be. That could.
and that's
Yeah,
what this animated movie basically is.
yeah. That's a good point. It very much is that. And the one that my personal favorite of the stories was forgive me, I can't remember the name. The girl whose father was the
Lyra.
king.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lyra. Yeah.
yeah. I really like that story. I mean,
Hmm.
there was that that family dynamic, that
mhm.
the torn family, the father daughter like rift. Couple that with her being a Green Lantern and her having to choose between protecting her nation and doing what her father wants, or going off in her own right and making her own path.
Yeah.
I thought that was really compelling story, and there was some emotion in there too, which is,
There was,
anytime you
because
can imbue these things with that kind of
her father
emotion, like
tells her,
you're getting me invested to, again, a
yeah,
character that I had no idea who it was, right? Right, like
Hmm.
my back then, my knowledge of Green Lantern was, okay. There's Kyle Rayner, John Stewart, and Hal Jordan. That was pretty much it. So if you can get me to care about a character that I have zero familiarity with, you've done a good job. And I just thought, that story really got me quite a bit. So
and it's one of the few origin tales that are in the movie. Like, you kind of learn
yeah,
Avra, you learn about hers, she's a new Green Lantern. Like,
yeah,
there and Kilowog, basically, we learn his
yeah,
origin as
Yes.
well.
yeah,
And it's just, it's crazy how this movie tackles so many things in it, and you learn where Poozer comes from.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Yes.
that's a huge part of
That's
Lantern
beautiful.
lore,
Yeah.
and you find out, and like I love Deacon. I think it's Deacon. It's either Deacon or Deacon. I can't remember which one.
It's Deegan.
Deegan. I love
Yeah.
him. I think he's great. And you're like,
And is
just
that
this little
comic
troll
accurate, Donnie?
character.
Yes and no. It's actually in the comics. It is Lantern Ermy, and it's actually right here if you want to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Blackest Night, Tales of the Core.
Okay.
I believe it's number 3 in this. But
Oh, it's recent. Okay.
the originally the drill instructor who trained Kilowog, the name came from actor R. Lee Ermey, who just passed away a few years ago, who
Oh,
was
wow.
known for playing drill instructors. But I forget exactly why they had to change it for the movie to Deegan.
Okay.
So it's similar. They just don't use that name.
Okay.
And he looks different than in the book, but it follows that storyline. Yes.
Never in a million years at that stage of my Green Lantern fandom did I think I'd feel bad for Kilowatt or sympathize with him.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he was just such a hard ass in the books that I'm like, I can't sympathize with this guy. This guy is like the gym teacher that you can't stand, right? It's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and here I was. I'm like, damn. I now I know why he is the way he is, right?
Mhm.
Um, but then he has that moment where even though Deegan was a jerk to him and like treated him like crap, when you know push came to shove, Kilowog stepped in and
Yeah. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He knows how to push all the right buttons to get
yeah, it's
his recruits to react, and he's prepping them for battle and everything. And it's funny, like you listen to like Deegan's speech, and he's like, if you're old enough to see your family grow old and you still got your rings, he's like, I did my job, like
yeah,
and you get it, like as a kid, even though you don't appreciate the hard ass teachers, the hard ass coaches you have until you're older, and you're like,
Yeah.
I
There's
get what you're
Lantern
doing.
Ermy. You want to see
Oh,
him?
okay.
Yeah. Like I said, it looks a lot different, but the personality is the same. So
Hmm.
okay,
I will have to track that book down.
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I might actually have it. I was big into those Blackest Night. Brightest Day didn't really hold me as much as like Sinestro's Core and the
yeah,
Blackest Night
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Well, a lot of people, when you talk about the best Green Lantern stories, Blackest Night gets mentioned a lot. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's. I mean, I recently went out and for my birthday, I was able to pick up a first appearance of Black Hand. Like that's a big part.
Yeah.
Blackest
Good one.
Night's a big part why I wanted that book. So
Black
Yeah.
Hand. So many awesome characters, man. There's so much, like you were saying, and then watching this film really hits home.
it doesn't
Forget
even
about
touch
live
half.
action forget about live action for a second. Even animated, like more animated films, there's so much potential. They could just basically run through Rebirth all the way to Blackest Night, and they have what 3 or 4 movies right there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So I mean, the Green Lantern like just buffet of stories is so large. It just is. I mean, if you take these movies, which have nothing to do with each other, the two of them, and
Yeah,
then something like Green Lantern, the animated series, which has nothing to do with either of those, and then you throw in like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited with John, and you're like, you guys barely touched Green Lantern.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
There's
it's amazing.
so much out there to say and tell.
Yeah.
Really, Warner Brothers does have their own Star Wars. I just don't know if they know it yet.
Yeah, for some reason that Ryan Reynolds movie really seems to have rubbed people the wrong way, and I don't get it because I don't think it's actually a bad movie.
Yeah,
You know,
Likewise. Yeah.
it's
it's not the Catwoman of Green Lantern movies. Like
no, it's somewhere like, but it's like along the lines of like Daredevil, the director's cut. So it's
yeah,
not great.
Yeah.
But it's I'm like, man, I've seen worse things than this.
Oh, far
But
worse. Yes.
it
So
oh,
seems to have scared them a little bit, and they're very hesitant with Green Lantern stuff.
mhm.
and I think
Overly so, but again, with from Warner Brothers' point of view, I think they lost some money and that made them so gun shy that they didn't know what to do with it because a lot of people who work at movie studios, they aren't comic book readers, so they don't realize just
I
how much
agree.
is out there.
Yeah.
and that's why I think something like because this was leading. Remember, this movie was leading into there was the primer for the film.
It was
So
basically the
the idea
tie-in, right?
Yeah.
was the film, the live action film, man, people are gonna love this, and we're gonna have a franchise go. So I think it's gonna take. Hopefully, my hope is that whenever we do see this HBO Max Green Lantern thing, that it does hit because if that hits and gets people like talking in a similar way, it won't be the same, but in a similar way to the way the Mandalorian has over on Disney Plus,
Mhm.
then I think you know their hesitation will fade and we'll start seeing
Yeah, and
things.
you just need a good product. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
you need one good hit, and then the sky's the limit. But it's the other story that really got me. I want to get your take on it. Was the Abin Sur um, story, because I had forgotten. Again, this is what happens when you don't watch these, once a year or whatever.
Yeah,
Uh, I had forgotten that Atrocitus was in it,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
and I'm like, before he said Atrocitus, I'm like, is that Despero? Who is that? Like, it looked like Despero. I'm like, is that? I'm not sure who this is. And then he says Atrocitus, and Atrocitus is going into the whole thing about, I can see the future. I can tell you what you're gonna, and he's telling him all this, and I'm like, uh huh. I want to see that. I want to see that. I want to see it. And
Yeah.
after he's done, I'm like, and I realized we didn't get to see any of this because
The
the
movie
live action
bombed.
movie did what the live
Yeah.
action movie did. And
Yeah.
I'm like, then I was pissed off.
Because it's like I had a conversation with a buddy of mine actually last night, and he was telling me like how he got hooked on like Star Wars. And he's like, every time Han Solo would talk, he'd mention like 3 different planets, and he's like, "Well, I want to hear about these planets." And he's like,
Yeah.
"That's how you quote them." He's like, "I want to know about these places," and it's you had the same reaction. Like he's mentioning all these events, and you're like, "Yeah, I want this, I want that," and it was just like, and you're like, "Oh man, this didn't
But it's
happen."
worse because I've read those stories in the book, so I know how
Yeah,
good they could be. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to see them. I don't care if it's live action or animated or whatever. I just want, like, I like for the larger, you know, pop culture audience to realize how awesome this IP is.
yeah, because it is great.
And I
I think
think,
they would love it
like
up.
you were saying, all it takes is one great thing.
Yeah.
If they had that one awesome product, I think they'd see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, like the whole like just notion of like the intergalactic police force and how
Yeah,
like the whole ring selection thing, like there are elements in there that I think that would really people would eat up. Like,
yeah.
and I mentioned Dune, like, but like the voice in Dune, like everyone was talking about it. Like, there's things like that in Green Lantern that people would just soak up and just
Oh yeah.
it's just got to be presented to them in the right way. And it just seems like outside of animation, which is so dedicated to the hardcore fan, there's no real Green Lantern representation, and
Yeah.
that's the problem. Like there's
Because I
nothing
mean,
to
these
get
things
normal
are
people
clearly
involved in this.
marketed to people that they know are going to buy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Like I
they
don't
got
see
us.
average
Well,
Joe
but just
moviegoer.
want to let you know, if you like that, this story with the one with Ab and Sewer, it's a story called Tigers, and it's almost beat for beat, except for instead of Atrocitus, it's Quill from
Mhm.
the five inversions. But if you like that story, you'd like the comic story too.
I just got to
His
buy that book. I got to find that book.
Yeah.
It seems like there was a
his
lot in there.
faith in Sinestro. I'm like, man, you put your cart with the wrong horse, man. I'm like, you're gonna regret that. You're gonna
It's
regret
interesting
trusting
how
that guy.
much like Abensor really did believe in Sinestro. Like
Yeah,
the turn of Sinestro is so interesting because it almost feels like they were looking at like a different universe and a different person because
yeah,
no one seems to believe it, and then when it happens they're all shocked and they don't know how to deal with it because he was at the time the best of the best, and
yeah, yeah.
that's why I love like Sinestro Corpse War because he's like he's exacting his revenge.
Yeah.
No, it was good, and I really I thought the voice work, especially from Nathan Fillion, to me, I, you know, if he was what maybe a decade younger, I think could have been like the picture perfect Hal Jordan in live action. I
Yeah,
mean, now
he's
it's too
got
late
I mean
unless
he's
they're going
essentially the
for another.
Conroy of Green
Yeah,
Lanterns, right?
yeah. Unless they're going for the Hal Jordan, like if they do get around to this proposed movie that's going to be a Hal and John thing, and no, it likely won't feature the Garage Lantern Wayne T. Carr. But anyway, um, but and no disrespect to Mr. Carr, I
Right.
just don't think that John Stewart should be relegated to a throwaway cameo. Is all I'm saying. Um, and I think he should have more gravitas than you know
Yeah,
than that.
Like,
So,
yeah.
but
Likewise, I'm sure he would be great.
he
My
would have been
issue is
good.
that
But yeah, I mean,
is
I've
that
seen
a
people
Green
how
Lantern coming in after the second like earth-shattering event.
I've seen people say, "Oh, he would have been the best Green Lantern we've ever seen." And how do you know that?
I've never I don't know anything that guy's in other
Right,
than
exactly my point.
that.
But
So I mean I
unless they're
I have
going
no clue.
for if the scenario they're going in this proposed, movie, that if it gets off the ground, that is, if Hal is going to be the elder statesman, you could theoretically
This sounds like Men in Black. It sounds
Yeah.
like Men in Black to me,
Yeah,
right? Just kind of like Hal would be T, and then obviously
right.
John would be J.
Yeah. So
Maybe
in
not
that kind of
retiring.
scenario, you could hypothetically cast Nathan Fillion if you chose.
Yeah,
But
I
voice-wise, I think he was perfect for the role.
I mean, I always like if Green Lantern was made in the '90s, right? It'd be like Tom Cruise, or in the,
Oh,
even
for
the
sure
'80s.
would
Like
have been. Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
just assumes it'd be like a Top Gun sci-fi movie.
Oh, yeah. Everybody. There were even rumors. Weren't there rumors around when was it after
Schwarzenegger's
Justice League came out?
Kilowatt or stuff like that. Yeah.
It was. I remember Tom Cruise's name being bandied about, but yeah, no, I thought he was the voice work was great there, and then Jason Isaacs as Sinestro. I really enjoyed
That was
his.
really excellent voice work. Yeah.
The voice cast in this movie is just great. Like it's I feel like they usually are. Like Warner Brothers and DC don't put out really bad animated things. Like the worst voice work in a DC animated movie has to go to like Ben McKenzie.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
Batman
not
Year
terrible.
One.
Yeah,
Yeah, and but that's like it. Like I wasn't a big fan of Jensen Ackles in Long Halloween, but that's just me. But usually the voice work for a Warner Brothers animated feature is just incredible.
yeah, yeah. And again, I think in terms of the most unique story that I found from this selection of stories was probably Mogo. Like I really,
Mhm.
it was so fun, and the realization that he was a planet, like the way they stretched it out and revealed that he is the planet. I thought
It's
was
it's crazy when you think about it because you're like,
was
well, where's the ring?
yeah.
Like, is it just on some random branch of a tree? Like, like what kind of ring is big enough for Mogo? It's like, how does he get it? Who does
Yeah.
Mogo's ring come from first? There's so many interesting questions which aren't even
That's
about
an
the
interesting
story.
point. Yeah, Donnie, do you know the answer to that?
Mogo, actually, in Volume 4, there was a time when St. Walker's walking along and he just sees it up on a random branch on a random tree. And St. Walker's like, why is it up there? And he was like, and it's like the little like squirrel beings. And Mogo's like, so they can play with it. So,
That's so
yeah.
interesting.
But you
Keeps
have no
keeps
idea
Chip
where
occupied.
you have no idea where he got it from, though, right, Donnie?
What about where Mogo got the
Where,
ring?
like, who's the wearer of his ring first?
Now that I think about it, I remember how it came in the animated series. I remember the Mogo, his first appearance, but now that I think about it, I don't think I remember if he had a someone bore his ring first. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, interesting,
Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah, no, but I like the reveal. The way they played that out. That was very interesting.
Mhm.
And then the fact that throughout all these like little origin kind of tales for these side characters, we still got about 25 minutes to half an hour of this big
Yeah.
sci-fi space battle, and I'm like, and you know what? Not once did I say, well, that final battle felt rushed. I was like, all right. I mean, it all worked. Like the pacing of this thing, considering everything they had to get done, I thought was fantastic. I don't know about you
Yeah.
guys.
No, there's not like at one point in this movie where I'm like, this is dragging. Like, are some stories more action packed or like, are they funnier or whatever? Like each story
Yeah,
is different in
yeah,
itself, but like the movie itself never drags. And it's like you said, then you come out to like this just all out battle royale, which is just so like, I guess kind of like a nod to Final Night too,
yeah,
and so
Yeah.
it's just cool. Like there's like how many big action pieces in this movie, and they're all they all take place in different parts.
yeah.
Like not one of them. It's not even part of the main storyline. And
Yeah.
it is really just utterly entertaining from start to finish.
And
I
I
agree.
I like the fact that they didn't forget that this was Arisha's first day on the job, and like they wanted to give her the big hero moment,
Hmm.
and I thought that was the right call because they could have easily said, all right, Hal, the narrator, the even the Atrocitus referred to him as the greatest Green Lantern. They could
Yeah.
have easily given that final choice to Hal,
To
but
Hal, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They didn't, and I like that.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
go
go on,
ahead,
Donnie.
sir. Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just saying again, like it's just another Lantern origin, and it shows like why the Lantern chose that specific person and how they all fit in like this grand scheme of just Owen technology.
Right.
It's and then I liked like in the end near the end of the movie how you see this story sort of being written into the book, like it's being imprinted into the book. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, the Book
the,
of Oa. And they were
I,
also able to introduce Arisia without the messiness of her origin from the
oh
comics.
yeah,
They were able to just kind of skip over that and say, okay, here's this character here, part of the Green Lantern Corps, and you were able to like her without the messiness of that relationship of how old is she,
Hmm.
So, by the way,
She hasn't been featured pretty prominently in a while. I feel like she
uh,
was huge in the '70s and '80s, right?
yeah, she came out of Hal Jordan and the not Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, Tales of the Green Lantern Corps. Yeah,
Okay.
it was I believe it was just it was Tales of the Green Lantern Corps #1 in the '80s. She just recently, I don't want to spoil it. Well, if you listen to our podcast, she just recently died, and
Okay, I
yeah,
did not know
so yeah,
because I remember she was still a big deal when I was reading Green Lantern books pretty regularly.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, Jeff Johns retconned her and kind of did away with all the messy stuff and said that
Huh.
she's actually 254 years old
Mhm.
because of the way that her planet rotates. And so she's not, no matter what she looks like, she's not a kid. Don't assume she's a kid. She's older than any of us, and let's just move on.
Okay.
So
Speak,
yeah. So
Speaking
The
of
the
Jeff
man with the
Johns,
magic pen.
I don't know about you guys, but every time I saw his name in the credits ascribed to a different story, I kind of smirked and smiled because I know that anger is the right people, and I'm sorry, I take pleasure in that. So, um,
That happens to me every time I see the opening credits of Stargirl.
yeah, it's like I thought he was, especially when you see the Stargirl opening credits. Gee, I guess that discredits the people that say he was fired. I guess they weren't accurate on that
It
front.
all depends on where you get your news.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But no, it's just like I said, I can't really think of one story that I didn't like to some degree. I mean, there were some that were more enjoyable than others, but I don't
Let
think
me
it's
interject
the
something just
punch.
real quick. If I told people that Mogo doesn't socialize is in the annual, it's not. It's in Green Lantern Volume 2, number 188, which was the one I was looking for before the podcast, in this huge box, this long box spread over here that I couldn't find, but that's where that is. So if I said that, I don't know if I said that or not at the top of the program, but I misspoke. It's Volume 2, number 188. It's a backup story.
Mhm.
Mogo doesn't
Even the
socialize.
human Green Lantern Wikipedia gets it wrong once in a while. It's okay.
Right, well, the human Green Lantern Wikipedia is old, so he forgets things sometimes. But anyway,
You have to put your consciousness in a computer, Donnie, so that there's obviously information stored.
oh, I could. There you go. I could do like Arnim Zola, and I could just show up in Canada someday, and I was like, "Hey, Adam,
Oh
how you
man.
doing?"
That's funny.
Oh man. I actually kind of want to see that now. That'd be funny. That's
Donnie
a
just
Halloween
pops up
costume.
on the video board at the what is it called? I forget what arena they play in now. The leaf, the Maple Leafs.
Yeah,
He just pops
Scotiabank
up.
Stadium. Yeah,
It turns green like they're playing the Stars.
yeah, yeah.
Donnie's face.
If they have theme night, it's funny because their American Hockey League affiliate has theme nights,
Uh,
and I know they've done Star Wars because who doesn't do Star Wars on a theme night?
right.
But yeah, a Green Lantern theme night would be kind of funny because they
yeah,
do have the. Now that you mention it, they do have the. Before they were the Leafs, they were the Toronto St. Pats.
Yes.
So there is the history with the green. So
yes. They
There you
have the
go.
green throwback
Do
jerseys.
it.
They look
so
awesome.
yeah, and every time they wear those, I'm like, oh, okay, Green Lantern night. All right, we're good. You can call it whatever you want. I'm calling it Green Lantern night. You can, but no, it's yeah, but like I said, there's not one story that I didn't enjoy here. Is there one that we didn't give proper time to that you guys want to key in on?
No.
No, we talked about the Avra, the first Lantern story. There was a Kilowatt appearance again. That was with. By the way, I believe it was Blackest Night where Lantern Ermy, who would have been Lantern Deegan in this, called Kilowog Brillo Log from the planet Balawax. He was really hard on him, and I and I remember Kilowog beating the blackest the Black Lantern Ermy into the ground. He's like, my name's Kilowog, so little anger that he had to kind of shed there, kind of have his cathartic moment. So
I don't think in the few appearances that we've gotten of Kilowog in animation and the one live action appearance so far. Well, technically two if you count the dead body in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but whatever. Um, I don't think we've ever gotten a bad Kilowog, right? Like Michael Clark Duncan, I thought the voice that he did was good.
Yeah.
And so far, the animated incarnations that we've seen, I thought, have all been what you'd imagine Kilowog would
Who
sound
voiced
like.
him in the animated series? Was it one of the Madsen brothers?
No, it was shoot. It was oh, and I can see him in my head right now. Oh, Michael. Shoot. I'll look it up. I can see him in my
I thought
head.
his,
I know.
I just
Was
thought
it
the voice could have
Michael?
been little more gravelly. You know, it kind of
Mhm.
seemed not as deep enough for Kilowog, but that's a slight nitpick. I love the animated series. There's
Oh,
not
yeah, it
much
was
I
great.
can.
That was canceled way too soon.
Oh, it's a shame. That show got me in love. I Larfleeze. I don't know if you can see it
Yeah.
above me, but I have an orange lantern on my shelf.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
the
yeah.
Larfleeze. My cousin Connor made me an
Nice.
orange lantern in his for his, like one of
That's
his high
awesome.
school projects when he was in high school. And I was
Kevin
like,
Michael Richardson.
Oh,
okay,
okay, that's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that voice could have been a little bit more gravelly. I thought,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
love the show, so
No, it was such a good show.
I do want to mention one Easter egg at the very beginning when the Guardians are moving, after Ardakian Trawl is killed
Mhm.
and we see them moving everything off of Oa. They say that we're going to move everything to the Broom Kane star cluster, which is an
Yes,
allusion to John Broome and Gil Kane, the creators of Hal Jordan, and subsequently
okay,
the Green Lantern Corps. So,
all right, okay.
that's an
That I
awesome,
did not know. That's awesome.
and yes, I
awesome,
pick up on stuff like that a lot.
awesome pull.
Well,
That is,
that's why we hang out with you.
It's funny because I knew who they were because of you when we did the earlier when we did the spotlights on Hal Jordan and such, and you would mention the creators. I picked up on that reference.
awesome. I'm so proud of you, sir.
I did
Yeah.
pick up on that, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have if I didn't know you. I probably wouldn't have picked up on that. Right? That's all. That's all on you. As
Yeah.
are any action figures that I buy from this point forward. It's all on you. It's all your fault because I see your room and I'm like, short of stealing three quarters of that collection, how am I gonna amass? Yeah.
Donnie, do
So
you collect other figures, or are you a strict Green Lantern collector?
I have a lot. I have a lot of Venom figures that over here, and it's mostly Green Lantern stuff. But I have a growing collection of a lot of different, like the 12-inch figures, like the Spin Master and
Okay,
Titan
yeah,
Heroes, and a lot of Venom stuff. I actually have a video link that I'll send you when I'm done here. I got a Venom. I got two of the Marvel Icons, the 12-inch ones in 2006. I got
okay.
David Michelinie to sign them.
Ooh, wow, nice,
Mhm.
nice.
I met
Did
him
you
at a con. Yeah,
have you been able to pick up any of the Lantern figures from McFarlane?
all of them.
Okay,
I got them.
see, my thing is like I want that Hal Jordan figure, man. It looks like a beautiful figure, but I don't want that stupid Batman thing. I just like,
The Dawnbreaker, yeah.
yeah,
Now I have three Dawnbreakers.
I just don't care about Dawnbreaker at all. I
yeah, me
wasn't a
neither.
big fan of Metal and Dark Knights, but that
Well,
I
and
was like,
see,
man, just give
go
me
ahead.
that solo figure. I just want that solo Jordan.
Well, I'm like, if they really wanted to make this like attractive, why not put the first figure ever of Joe Mullane in here with Hal Jordan? People would have eaten that up, you
I
know.
would. Oh, I mean, I don't know. I would take. It's Snyder just sells. You know, Scott Snyder is so
Yeah,
popular that
he
fanboys.
does, but his later stuff was like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
that Dark Knight Metal was the beginning of the end of me collecting Justice League. That was the beginning of the end. And then Bendis, unfortunately, I haven't liked. I started with Bendis, but I haven't liked where it's gone. So I'm like, yeah, I can't. I'm not reading this.
No.
Uh, so I had to drop it because we did the first couple issues, remember? And then as it went along, I'm like, yeah, I'm
The
not
only
feeling
Justice
this.
League book I like right now is Last Ride, and that's over.
Oh,
Oh, that's yeah, that just ended. But yeah, that was
Danny, we
great.
said we were going to do
Oh
that
man,
when it's
what
finished, right?
Darkseid did with Jordan in what was it, issue 6, like broke my heart.
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, oh man, I was like, first of all, Darkseid's badass as hell, but I was like, God
Oh yeah.
damn it, how did he do that?
There is a cool. I know you like the whole dark side thing, and you have a thing with
My man Uxas.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. He's actually in heavily in Green Lantern #7
Okay,
as
Yes, you will
Uxas,
like that. Yeah,
not
yeah.
yeah.
I'll start picking up that book if you guys say it's good.
I think you'll dig it. it's got two artists. It's got Marco Santucci, who
And
we
Tom
interviewed
Rainey.
a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago, and Tom Rainey. And the art's fantastic. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the rebirth era of Green Lantern? Not
Oh,
Green Lantern Rebirth, but the company launch Rebirth.
Oh, okay.
oh, the New 52. Oh, I liked it
I
a
like
lot.
New 52. I liked Vendetti or whatever. I can't pronounce his name.
Robert
Yeah,
Venditti.
Robert
Yeah.
Van Dien.
I thought
Yeah.
his Green Lantern stuff was great, and then when they did Green Lantern and Green Lanterns and Hal Jordan's Green Lantern Corps, I thought both of those stories are great. I personally never thought I'd fall in love with a character like Jeff. Like that character she's so relatable that
Oh yeah.
Jessica.
you
Yeah.
just can't help but
Yeah.
like be like,
Yeah.
I feel for this. Like I want more. Like it's crazy. She just took over. She's that good.
Oh, she's great, and I know they never. I don't think they'll do it, but they should. I don't watch Doom Patrol, but I used to, but I just it's just too out there for me. But the actress that plays Crazy Jane,
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I don't care. You multiverse that crap and cast her as Jessica. Like to me,
Right.
that's one
Yeah,
plus one equals
I'm with
two.
you.
And unless you
She's a
change
good actor.
math, if you don't
Well,
cast her, I'm not gonna.
she voiced Jessica Cruz in Justice
Yeah,
League versus the Fatal Five, and her
Which I
voice work
dug.
is
I thought that
perfect.
was a good. I thought it was a good
yeah.
animated movie.
Yeah.
Like I heard a lot of
Oh,
people
it's
didn't
great.
like
Yeah.
that. I really enjoyed that movie.
Like, don't get me wrong. If they don't cast her in the Green Lantern show, I'm not gonna harass Warner Brothers or anything. But
What
just my
did you?
preference.
How do you, Donnie? How do you feel about Stargirl and how they treated the Lantern?
Hmm.
I didn't have my only issue is, and retroactively, I may look back on this and say it wasn't an issue. I felt like they needed more of
Yeah.
of Jenny in this season. I didn't like the fact that it ended without her having like a costume, but I think they made it as palatable and as simple for viewers as they could, because had they gone so deep into Alan and so deep into the Star Heart, it would have been really confusing for people.
It's I agree with you. It just as someone who as a fanboy, I'm just like, man, that's such a tease.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, I
but
hope
at
they
the end when
develop it
Shade is
over
like
time.
powers
Yeah.
of light like come together and all the light forces just end up striking Eclipse, I'm like, God damn, this is so good. And I don't know, just seeing the lantern itself, like, you saw it in like season one, and you get that, you get hyped because you're like, okay,
Oh yeah.
Well,
plan
my wife
to see this.
said the premiere this season, I had heard that Jenny wasn't going to be on that episode, which was obviously wrong. And so I was standing in front of my TV, and all of a sudden I see that scene start to develop. And
Mhm.
my wife was standing behind me, and she said that, and I'm a big guy, and she's like, it looked like a little kid. She said you were like hopping up and down on your feet, and I was like, it's Jade, it's Jade,
Yeah, no, it's a big deal to get her on the
Yeah,
screen.
I was just out of my mind excited to see her. So
I'm curious though if they were limited with what they could do because of the fact that Alan is going to be showing up on the HBO Max.
it could be, yeah.
But I'm sure Jeff Johns has his hands in both pots. Like that's another thing too. Like I mean, Stargirl's very important to him. Like
Right.
that's a character that means a lot to him, and,
Right.
and probably there's not another character next to it besides Green Lantern. So the fact that he was able to get even just a little bit in there, I feel like he's going to take his time and really develop that. You
Yeah.
know, Like,
Yeah. I don't
that's
think we've seen
I
the
feel like
last
it's in
of
the
her.
right
That's for sure.
hands.
I don't think she was a one and done kind of
No, but
scenario.
it's just such a tease. I'm like, oh man, just like I'm so interested to see like, does she look like Jade? Like, when does she
When did she
become
get the
green?
green skin?
Yeah, when she
Yeah.
Yeah.
get the green
And
skin,
I'm like, even for the considering the CW, like that it's on the CW, I thought the construct that she made of the car of the toy car, I thought it looked pretty solid. Because
But that show is very interesting to me because like I know it's on the CW, but it's also like HBO Max has put money into it, like they did Superman and Lois. So I'm like waiting to see like, is it going to become an HBO Max? Because like it was pretty dark this year.
it
And
was, yeah,
to
Hmm.
be honest, like even Batwoman has had some pretty interesting moments where it's
yeah,
gotten dark this year. And I'm like, this is interesting for the CW. Sometimes you guys are way more like bubblegum and popcorn. And
yeah.
like, I was like, you guys are really getting bloody. I was
Yeah.
kind of impressed.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're bang on about Batwoman as well. I thought it's been darker this season. I think,
It's been like that whole thing with Killer Croc was pretty nasty. And then this week with Professor Pig, he had
yeah,
like one good slasher movie kill, and I was like, oh wow, like I was like, okay,
yeah, man.
like all right,
Somebody over
CW.
there is letting them get away with
Well,
some
yeah,
stuff.
and what was the character who cut her face off last season? I couldn't believe they actually let that on
yeah.
Batwoman. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when it was a full on view of this woman with her face cut off. You know.
It was like Black Mask's daughter or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was when they brought in Wallace Day from Krypton to play.
Yeah, they did. They brought her in for and then
play Kate. Yeah.
Jesus. What a
Oh yeah, I have to tell you guys, I made this note when I was rewatching the movie. I remember the first time I watched the the Mogo doesn't socialize story, which again also in the comics. But there's that similar scene where Bolfunga realizes he's on Mogo and that there is no being on this planet. It is the planet. And I just love that, when he realizes and he's terrified. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, you done messed up, Ron.
Yes. Yeah. And I love it when he tries to escape, and then he's like, he uses his like gravitational pull and just.
But how do you defeat a planet?
Yeah, you don't.
Short of hitting it with an asteroid, how do you?
Oh, jeez, Bolfunga. He is unrelenting.
Yeah, no, I really looking back on this movie, this is probably in the grand totality of things, maybe the third time I've watched it, and I've enjoyed it even more this time around.
Yeah, no, it's good. I pop it in. Like I said, I pick stories. I don't necessarily watch the whole movie straight through, but I always watch Bolfunga. That's like one of my.
But you know what? You got to give them credit. A lot. Most of the movies, not all of them. Some of them don't benefit from the hour and a half runtime, but most of them can be quite solid and quite economical with that 1 hour and 25 minute runtime. So you got to give again DC animation 9 times out of 10 they're killing it with these things. So I mean, and we're supposed to be getting, according to Fandom, we're supposed to be getting another Green Lantern animated film.
Yeah, called Beware My Power. We don't know what
Don't
it's going
know
to be about or who's going to be in it. Yeah.
What story it might be pulling from, but if anybody from Warner Animation is listening, they're probably not. But if they are, like we said at the top, I mean, you've got movies plural there. All you got to do is pick up the source material and go through it. So
there's literally a Green Lantern for everyone.
So is there any other moment that, like, out of this movie that you guys want to talk about that was a particular favorite moment?
No. I mean, we covered it. I thought we covered it all. I just
the
movie as a whole is just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just I love the anthology aspect because it gets a lot done in, like you said, like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I just want to point out the one that struck me, and I remember replaying it several times, was the scene at the end of the Avra story where you see the various lanterns who carry that ring from Avra to Abensur. And you get, that's a perfect way to show that the Green Lantern Corps, it's not just about the Earth Lanterns. It's not just about one lantern. It's something that's ancient and huge.
Yeah.
And it's, billions of years old. And that's what I like about that, is that showing you just how enormous this story is. So
yeah. No, it's like I said, I think it did a great job of showcasing the mythology, the lore of the lanterns. And if I had to show something to a new fan, it'd probably be the 2 animated movies, that we've got, and probably the animated series. That's like, if I was like Green Lantern for Dummies, here are the 3 things you could, and then if you want more in depth, then I start showing them the comics. But that's how I would broach it.
Oh yeah, Krona, Green Lantern Volume 2, number 40. Obviously, that's pricey. That's an old one. It also features an appearance of Alan Scott. You can get it in the Green Lantern Omnibus number 2.
Look at that thing. That thing
here.
Is.
Yeah. Now, this in and of itself is
nice.
not cheap, but this is a whole.
It hurts
omnibus.
Something with that
thing.
So
it's a doorstop.
You ought to see the Blackest Night 10th anniversary edition I have. It is so.
How many pages is it?
It's like 1,000. It's like 1,088 or something.
The
wife
biggest
had to hold
one
it with
I
both
have.
hands. Yeah.
The biggest one I have is the Jeff Johns Teen Titans Omnibus. That's my biggest book.
Yeah, it might be along those same lines. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's huge.
That's crazy.
It's almost unreadable. It's like how do I read this? Yeah.
How do I read it? I ignore everything else for a couple of days. Nobody talk to me.
Just go hide in your room there, and you're good, Donnie. just got to decorate that. But mind you, that tree fits in nicely with that green.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
adds to the ambiance. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the time that I made a dad joke and Jeff Thorne was like, "Go to your room," and Adam's like, "Have you seen that room? That's not a punishment."
Yeah. No, Jeff, that was a good interview. I actually,
Yeah.
he was very generous with his time. He gave us a lot of time, so appreciate him for that. But no, yeah, like I said, I guess if we've all said what we need to say on the specifics, I guess final thoughts and overall grade. Donnie, you want to get to that part of the show?
Oh yes, I'm going to give it an A just because the animation is great, but the scope of the storytelling here, the fact that they looked at so many lanterns, different eras, and the fact that it focused on so many supporting characters. As a longtime Green Lantern reader, somebody who's been at it really for 40 years now, this is the kind of story you wanted.
Awesome. Pete, what are your final thoughts and grade?
No, I'm with Donnie. I give it an A. Just it's a real crash course in everything Green Lantern. You learn everything you need to know, and it's a really good starting off point, and it shows you just how big and how just massive the scope is for these characters.
Yeah, agreed. It's an A for me, mainly because the way they integrated the different stories with the larger narrative they were telling. I thought that flowed well. Again, they gave you just enough of what you needed and wanted to know to make this vast mythology palatable for newcomers, if newcomers were watching. Even though these things, as we said earlier, are very specific to the market is very. If you're a reader or a fan of DC, you'll buy this. I don't know how well they sell to the general population, but it is what it is. But if you are a novice, I think this would be a fairly easy thing to get into, and you wouldn't be overwhelmed by it. So, all in all, I thought it was a great representation of Green Lantern, and it shines a light on the mythology, pun intended, quite well.
Ah,
So that that pretty much wraps up the show, boys. Pete, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure to
Thanks
have
for
you.
having me.
let him give all of his information.
Yeah,
Oh,
social
sure.
media plug time. So go ahead.
You can follow me on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite Vera at Pete Illustrated. You can follow podcast number 1, Straight Outta Gotham, on Instagram and Twitter. That's straight_O_G. That's a news-based podcast that I co-host with Eric Holzman. You can follow podcast number 2, the Italian Spider-Man Coalition, on Twitter at Italians for Spidey. I co-host that with the dynamic duo Sausage and Meatball. That's Nicholas and Nico Caruso. You can check me out on BatmanOnFilm.com. I've got comic reviews. I've got reviews for Detective Comics. I've got reviews for Batwoman on Batman on Film YouTube. I've got interviews with Michael Uslan and Kevin Conroy and Tara Strong, as well as others. Tony Todd's up there. So check those out. You can check out at Team Yellow Oval as we celebrate the return of the Yellow Oval to the big screen and Michael Keaton and Andy Muschietti's Flash movie. Just check out the Batman Podcast Network. Lots of great shows there. There's a ton to pick from if you guys are looking for other nerdy ventures.
Donnie, you got to check out. You'll dig the Spider-Man podcast.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
It's a
And
blast.
Peter, if you could stay just a few minutes after we finish here, because I want to
Yeah,
ask some questions about those busts and statues that are behind you.
sure, no
That's a
problem.
beautiful, yeah. That's a
All right,
beautiful setup.
before we get to that fun stuff, if people want to talk to you, Donnie, and want to plot ways to steal from your collection, where do they
You
get a
can
hold of
find me on Twitter as the Emerald Enthusiast. Let's talk comics, let's talk collectibles, let's talk Green Lantern.
you? Actually, if you want to steal from Donnie's collection, I'm putting together a squad to go to his house and steal some stuff. So
Does
talk
he
to
have
me
any
about that,
dogs?
and you can do that at Adam_Leafs fan. We also have that's my personal Twitter. We also have the show, the network handle at MMNPDC. We have a Facebook page which is linked somewhere in the description below. Click it, I'll add you, and we can continue the conversation there. But until next time, remember that Green Lantern Emerald Knights are forever, from the first lantern to the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.